Other animals dream. Some apes play pretend. But as far as we know, humans are the only animals that tell stories. There are evolutionary reasons for that, of course. Stories are for passing on knowledge, communicating ethical values, of trying to understand the world and who we are in it. Stories see a way through. They allow us to imagine, to play, to connect with big ideas and other people. They provide a different perspective. We're living in unpredictable and uncertain times. Our whole lives right now are what if. It feels like we need stories more than ever, as an escape and entertainment, but also as a way of engaging with big ideas and the real human issues that affect us most. Together with Lauren Bierkus, RisCura workshopped seeds of ideas based on our philosophy of care, recognizing that rational investment decisions are underpinned by emotions when it comes to people and money. Some of the ideas were based on present-day concerns, like how to pay for your child's education. Others explored what-ifs, like what would happen if the retirement age was raised, or what if credit scores were public knowledge. These ideas were turned into short stories by authors ranging from award-winning novelists and bestsellers to fierce new voices. This anthology, titled Upshot, allows us to imagine possible financial futures or alternate realities and the effect of investing with or without care. Today, I invite you to join me in the story titled Last Shot. This audio snippet is accompanied by a unique light show experience. To get the full impact of the show, we ask that you take your computer and you position it as closely as possible towards a darkened wall. While the screen is facing the wall, darken the room and turn up your volume as we dive into Last Shot, written by Angela Makholwa and narrated by Zolile Nokwe. It's the year 2045 where we meet Elby Shirty, wheeler dealer extraordinaire, and we find out if cryogenic freezing is the retirement solution to 85 years of investment scheming. Hold on tight as we delve into this fast and wicked satire in Johannesburg's high society with biotech and some big personalities. Over to you, Zolile.
The venue was buzzing with the kind of electric energy that could only be found at an audio gas studio party. LED chandeliers, feng shui decor, and mood catering were the order of the day. No surprises there after all, Audio Gas Studios was the country's biggest surviving multimedia company. At an age when music had become so mainstream that 12-year-olds were curating sounds for the mass market, it was a minor miracle that Audio Gas still existed. Tonight, the company was bidding farewell to their Chief of Operations, Mandla Mixit Mabote. Most likely, the organization's last human Chief of Operations. Albie Shorty pondered this, gripped by a deep wave of nostalgia for an era that had receded along with his hairline. The legendary Mandla Mabote was finally retiring. Unbelievable, especially considering all the investments he had plowed into.
Hi, I'm Isaac Ramputa, Director at RisCura. Thank you for stepping into the future with us. With me today, I have RisCura MD, Malcolm Fair, and one of the Upshot anthology contributor, Angela Makholwa, who is the author of Last Shot. Hi, Malcolm, and welcome, Angela. Thank you. First question I'm going to be asking Malcolm. Malcolm, why Upshot?
We've always had the idea that we'd like to do more in education and training and in financial services in the industry. And we've always thought through, how could we do that? And when we were brainstorming those ideas, one of the thoughts that we had was, the power of storytelling. It's such an ancient art, and there's more and more science now showing that storytelling actually allows other areas of the brain to be engaged, and it leads to a greater level and deeper and richer absorption of the information. So we thought, well, that would be a great way to spread or help educate people about financial and investment matters. So we took a group of staff internally. We did some workshopping around what are some great future financial concepts in our industry. We discussed those at length and came up with a list. And then we collaborated with acclaimed author Lauren Bjerkes. She's won a number of awards in science fiction writing in particular, which we thought, with this futuristic idea for what's going on in the industry, would be a nice connection and way to bring out in a storytelling way some of these financial concepts. And Lauren suggested that we collaborate with a number of upcoming artists, like, for example, Angela, and in putting together an anthology of short stories around financial investment concepts. So that's how we got here.
So one of the stories in the Upshot anthology is Last Shot, which focuses on retirement fund. Angela, talk to us about the story briefly, in particular, the main character, LB, and his struggles.
Upshot is set in, circa 2050, 2060, so the not so distant future. And the main character is Albie Shorty. He's quite a maverick. He's this man who's spent all his life kind of hedging his bets, and he's had a good run of luck in investing in stocks that actually deliver for him. However, and this is unbeknownst to his circle of friends, towards his later years, he made some bad investments. And so he's in quite a quandary when we first encounter him. So we encounter him attending a huge party for one of his mates, a guy that he did business with. And we can already sense that he's well revered for being kind of this amazing maverick who's good with money. However, there's a big milestone coming up. He's turning 85. And during this time, in this futuristic setting, 85 has become the new retirement age. And what the government of the time has done is that they've extended the retirement age to 85 because people have started taking good care of themselves, as we already see, in this day. That anti-aging is quite the thing. So at this stage in our future, people have invested, they can invest in new limbs. You can get a heart transplant. If your heart gives you problems, you can get a new liver, so the future is up for the taking. So Albie has like all his peers, he's invested in all of these things. He is in fairly good health for an 85-year-old. But financially, he's completely not ready for retirement. And the thing is, what the government of the day has done is that if by 85 you've not saved up the stipulated amount for a well-functioning adult, you are sent off to something called an aging colony. And I'm going to just read. Can I read a little excerpt of what the aging colony?
Oh yes, go ahead, Angela. Read it.
All right. Okay. So, when the Aging Food and Population Control Act was first passed, lobby groups protested. As a concession, the government gave retirees the option of making up the deficit within 2 years of their official retirement age, arguing that it was manifestly unfair to occupy an already overpopulated landscape without contributing significantly to the fiscus. This meant that most adults in their 60s at the time had to ensure that they had saved up enough money to live for another 40 years or face the pressure of working their limbs off from the age of 85 to 87 if they wanted to avoid life in the colonies. So what happens at these colonies, these are Spartan camps in the remote rural areas where Retirees were required to put in 6 hours of labor each day, batching and packaging human and animal waste for renewable energy production and soil regeneration purposes. So you want to avoid the colonies as much as possible.
I don't think any one of us want to go to that aging colony. Very futuristic. I believe that it's what, as an industry, we are trying not to get our people to go to. Now that we have heard about the story and its characters, Malcolm, what are the financial concepts behind this story that RisCura wanted people to feel informed on?
Thanks, Isaac. You know, just hearing Angela read the story is such a great reminder. This is definitely one of my favorite stories of the whole anthology, if not my favorite. And I absolutely love the characters that you draw, Angela, in the story. So, and Albie's plight, you know, driving towards 85 and figuring out what he needs to do is so real. But it's also so humorous in many ways because, you know, at the moment we sit with 65, and I think for us to contemplate 85 is just quite out of this world. But it's potentially around the corner. And that's really the central financial theme here is, you know, this concept that a retirement age of 65 is actually quite an old idea. It dates back to the 1800s. And at the time, it was basically the age at which, you know, a lot of people died. And now we're in the place where we may well live, as you say, 40 years beyond the age of 65. And in that sense, in a very real sense, the amount of time that you might have saved money prior to retirement, so between 25 and 65, let's say, is the same as the amount of time that we're going to reach that you would have after retirement. And so unless we move the retirement ages out effectively, you're going to end up, you know, only working half of your active adult life as our activity is extended by, as you say, additional limbs and body parts. So, you know, this concept of longevity is a very real concept in retirement funding, and actuaries have to deal with that in their valuation of funds, and they have to deal with it in contemplating what is going to happen in the future and how long are these members of retirement funds actually going to need their money for. A lot of, at RisCura, a lot of the work that we do is around formulating investment strategy for funds. And in that work, we're actually modeling all the way out to 2080, now 2090 for some funds, because the 20-year-olds now are still going to be around, not actively contributing, but receiving pensions all the way through to then. And it's a very real thing, you know, to try and think through that far into the future, how it is that you're going to be, how your health is going to be, but then also, frankly, how the environment around you is going to be as well. And that's becoming more and more important these days when we think about, you know, what is the world we're going to retire into? Because no point having a pile of cash when you get to retirement, but actually there's no environmental society in which to retire at that point. And so, interestingly, it's, you know, as we think through these futuristic worlds that we're going to live in, it's actually to reflect back on today and say, well, what are we doing today to make sure that we actually have the kind of world that we want to retire into later as well? And so this whole concept of longevity.
Angela, with all the concept that Malcolm has spoken about longevity and other financial concepts, how did you manage to weave it into the story, and what message were you trying to get across?
This project, because I'm somebody who's very interested in the idea of longevity, and also, of course, living at a time where, you know, there's so much uncertainty about the future, and just the correlation of a long life and having some kind of plan for where one would be in 40 years' time or 30 years' time. So it was interesting then to bring in fun technological advancements, to aid, to see just how much you can push the boundaries as humanity in as far as our life cycles are concerned. Because I think Malcolm mentioned that, before people, the age of longevity way back in the past was, of mortality rather, was 40. And then it became 60. And then of course, COVID has disrupted that a bit, but all things being equal, with people getting vaccinated and so on and so forth, we can still hope to live up to 90 or 100 by following certain lifestyles and so on, which I think have become quite common. People know to exercise and take care of themselves and all of that kind of stuff. But what does it mean? Does it mean that if I started saving at 30, which I probably did, have I covered myself enough, so and also the cost of living and the type of lifestyle that we live is quite expensive. So you do wonder, have I factored in inflation? Will I be able to afford the house that I live in today, in the future? So I also found it quite educational, just this process of even researching the different concepts, the concept of retirement, of inflation, and also what the future holds in terms of human life cycles. So
I remember, so the Blessed Girl, that was in our interview. I remember the journal asking you about the Blessed Girl.
Yeah.
Eat a lot of acclaim. But your latest story, what is that about?
Critical but Stable is about 3 middle-class couples who live, some of them are living way beyond their means, which is also relevant, I suppose, for this discussion. So it's all about keeping up with the kumalos, and each couple is kind of harboring this big secret that they're keeping away from the other couples, because they're part of a social club. They're actually part of a stokvel, but it's a stokvel on steroids. It's very glamorous. The contributions that they make monthly to the stokvel are higher than the average because of the lifestyle that these people live. And also some there's one couple where the husband has kind of managed to make a dent dent on the family finances, and he keeps on hiding from his wife what the cause of that huge debt is. So we find out later in the book what that is about. And then the other couple is extremely wealthy, but they have a shady past that they're determined to hide from everyone until it comes back to haunt them. So we find out what that is about as well. And the other couple are a bit more sensible. They kind of conservative, but they also have problems of their own, kind of intimacy problems. And all of these secrets and lies and all of that are kind of bubbling under the surface until they implode and we find out what that's all about. So yeah.
Thank you, my panelists, Angela and Malcolm, for interesting discussion. But those who want to read or listen more stories in the Upshot anthology and explore some of the alternative financial features, you can visit the link on the screen. People who are worried about the inflation in last shot, we invite you to liaise with the RisCura team on the exhibit sign about your concerns on the financial futures, and also how RisCura can ensure that your fund is on a track to mitigate inflation, and others that you'd like to ask. Thank you very much.